What highly illegal thing took place at your high school? Two students planned and carried out a coordinated attack on one of the math teachers by waiting by the top of the stairs between periods. And when he passed by them to go down the steps, one of them pushed him from behind while the other put his leg out to trip him. The teacher fell down the steps and broke his neck and back and was paralyzed from the neck down. The kid's reasoning: because one of them was dropped from the basketball team because he was failing that teacher's math class. Both of them were 15 years old. So they didn't get jail time. They both got expelled and were sent to juvenile detention. The teacher sued the school district and got a settlement in the lower 7-digit range. Our football coach took off with one of the girls in the high school and moved to Mexico and married her. He had a wife and kids. They then hired a brand new football coach who was 23 years old. Before the end of his first year, he was hooking up with an 18-year-old senior girl. They also took off and went somewhere. We went without a coach for a couple years. I interviewed to teach at a high school once. One of the questions from the school board was, can you avoid sleeping with your students? Me: yes. Yes, I can. School board thinks I'm great. Principal thinks I'm great. Superintendent of schools doesn't think I'm cut out for the job. Gives me the runaround. Principal is trying to help me push through it and get hired, but I finally give up and get a normal job elsewhere. Superintendent hires his nephew, wonder why he gave me the runaround, who promptly has sex with a student and gets fired. I still see the principal occasionally, he always apologizes, I wanted to hire you. He's way too nice to have been stuck at that lousy school. The principal was ducking students. A few years after I graduated, some parents found out and took him to court. He hanged himself before he could be convicted. Edit, corrected the word from hung. My history teacher had sex with a 15-year-old girl, but she didn't admit it for at least a decade. He was a good teacher and I liked his class. But he's gonna rot in jail for the rest of his life. The middle school gym teacher who inappropriately touched lots of preteen girls, who promptly told on him, got the teensiest slap on the wrist, and that was that. Over spring break one year, the entire hockey team and the cheerleaders all went to rehab. The goalie was dealing coke to all of them. Sounds like a bad goalie letting them all score. My teacher was molesting my 14-year-old classmate for a while. He went to jail and is still there 20 years later because another past victim came forward. So that's pretty illegal. Knew a guy that sold coke in class and tried to offer a girl pot to sleep with him. There was also some public underage sex in one of the halls that lead to a girl starving herself until she miscarried. Drama teacher slept with the hottest chicks in class and nothing ever happened to him. They would never be able to prove it. Don't you know all drama teachers are gay? The reason nothing came of it is because the girls were consenting and never told anyone. To them it was a fling that they chose. But as an adult now you look back at a guy in his 30s sleeping with at least two 16-year-olds, and criminal is the only word that comes to mind. He was the coolest guy in the room to women and even to most of the guys. But my group was always like, this guy's too cool. Something doesn't feel right here. His ability to shapeshift seamlessly between being a teacher or authority figure and a peer was impressive at the time. Now I would probably see right through it. And obviously aided by some oblivious parenting that allowed the girls free rein to rehearse plays as much as they wanted. Including at his house. I don't think they knew about this. Including Saturday nights until 2 to 3 AM. Sometimes one-on-one. Seems insane now. But cult of personality can get you a lot of rights that you wouldn't have otherwise. Murder. A kid in the grade ahead of me murdered his sister behind the high school. An acquaintance of mine helped him bury the body. Edit, wow, this blew up. So this guy was in my English class when I was a sophomore. He was a junior. He was a tennis star on the school team. Seemed real straight-laced. I didn't know his sister. It's rumored that he abused her and she was going to tell. But it's just rumor. What did happen is that they had an argument behind the high school and he hit her over the head with a flashlight and killed her. He and his friend, a guy I knew casually, Buried her in a shallow grave outside of town. For your information. Small town. Central Oregon. I'd link to the case. But it's hard to find anything online. This happened in about 1987. Pre-internet. Anyway. She was just missing for some time. Many months. When hunters discovered the grave and sheet went from there. Edit 2. If anyone can find the info online. That would be cool. I can't find anything. The guy's name is Brian Ford and this happened in Bend, Oregon in about 1987. A film crew lied about what kind of film they were making. Turns out it was porn. So my high school is the setting of the film The Cheerleaders. Pretty sure that's illegal. Yeah, it's pretty tame. What do you want from me? I live in Cupertino. We had a softball coach sleep with his students. But a far more interesting story that didn't technically take place on school grounds. There was this kid who was constantly being harassed by bullies. They would even follow him after school and attack him. So there was this hardware store across the street and a lot of kids would hang out in the parking lot after school. The bullies chased the kid inside and cornered him in the garden section. They kept hitting and kicking him, so the dude grabbed an axe from one of the shelves and just started swinging. All the bullies ended up in the hospital with various injuries. Security camera got the whole thing, but I can't remember now if Jim Lee, son of Gloin, was charged or if it was ruled self-defense. Update. I followed up with my sister who actually knew the kids involved better than me. She was closer to their age. The news articles that came out at the time didn't really talk about the pattern of abuse that led to the axe kicking. But she did confirm that Jim Lee was sent to juvenile corrections for a while. She remembered when he got out and as far as she knew he was doing well. Edit. Thank you for silver and gold. Edit 2. So I thought I left things vague, but apparently this incident was unique enough that people have found some of the news articles. There are more details about the subsequent legal action and those for interested parties. I've posted about this before. But some kids in our business club were so enterprising they started counterfeiting money. Which resulted in the Secret Service showing up to investigate. Edit. Yes, the Secret Service. Not the FBI. Investigates counterfeiting. It was actually why they were created in the first place. Wikipedia.org. One of the old teacher's aides got arrested for child porn and filming the elementary kids' bathroom. Had a guy selling heroin. After that there was a weekly police presence. Also, a kid bound a girl to a chair, gagged her and stuffed her in a cupboard in the woodworking shop. He claims it was to help her complete the sponsored silence she had been doing that day. A bunch of the guys had a fight club. It was actually really well planned and had been going on for years. Until one Dumbus Jr. broke the first rule of Fight Club and posted a video. A bunch of kids got suspended. I think a couple of the seniors got probation or deferment. Edit. I think it's wild how many of you ask if we went to the same high school. I've gotten multiple different countries and at least a 15-year range. A teacher was caught having sex with an autistic student. I believe the student claimed to have loved her. Her dad was also a teacher at the same school and he left after the incident came out. Edit. Teacher was female. Student was male. There were 4 freshmen in the bathroom stall just vaping and a teacher came in, so they freaked out and didn't want to get in trouble, so they thought calling the cops on the teacher for harassment would get them out of trouble. They got expelled an hour after the cops arrived. We had a science teacher say, if you don't put goggles on, I'm going to have to spray you in the eyes with Lysol, which was probably not illegal until the student tried to call her bluff. She wasn't bluffing. And that's how the legend was born. Carol. She didn't wear her safety goggles. Now she doesn't need them. The cheerleaders got caught selling morphine. The football team got into a brawl with a rival school at a local pizza place over said morphine scandal. A huge fiasco over a kid putting baking soda and vinegar in a test tube and sealing it and taping it under a lunch table till it exploded. Edit. To clarify, the baking soda vinegar incident was completely separate from the morphine and brawl one. Sorry for the confusion. Had a pretty controversial case involving a handicapped student who had cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy. His parents filed a lawsuit accusing 2 of his handlers of abusing him by dumping him out of his chair and forcing him to wear a neck brace so he'd look them in the eye. Worst part was I don't think the handlers suffered any consequences. I looked up articles on it and all of them highlight the abuse and lawsuit. But none follow through with the results, which is frustrating. The principal hired a bunch of students to sell steroids at the local gym. Same principal gave the same students a list of kids who were questioning their sexuality with the counselor before XRs were a thing, and they all had their lockers bashed in with a baseball bat. One of the kids had his parents notified and was beat within an inch of his life. Art teacher used to hotbox her classroom and then use the kiln fan to pull all the smoke out. Edit. Sorry. That is confusing. K principal organizes mob. Mob beats up gay kids. Mob calls super religious parent and outs gay kid. Parent beats gay kid. Parent gets anger management and community service because they are an influential community member. Typical art teacher there. No surprise. A teacher sexually harassed like 12 students. The issue is everybody loved that guy. He won Best Teacher award like 2 days before his arrest. PS. No, this isn't Persona 5. This actually did happen. I'm not making a clever joke about Kamoshida, although I probably would have. This was a real guy. One Mr. Chu. Football team had an incident where somehow a Gatorade bottle ended up going up a freshman's butt. Edit. Hey gold. Nice. Not highly illegal. But not legal either. I figured out how to make fake IDs in my home darkroom and showed a friend how to do it. This was in the early 70s. Before Photoshop. When analog darkrooms and chemical-based photography were the only option. He went into production in the school darkroom. His quality sucked. He got caught. My quality was excellent. But I only made one for me. Pre-internet days, kinda. CDs were a thing. I had a massive CD collection and a gigantic book in my locker. I typed up lists of all the artists and albums I owned. So I had these flyers everywhere, and for $3 a CD I'd burn you a copy. This was right when CD burners came out and my stepdad was super into the latest and greatest tech, so we had the cool gadgets when they came out. I eventually was caught, but for a time I made Krilla money. What happened after you were caught? Kids were selling candy and snacks to other students, obliterating the monopoly that the vending machines once held. Administration cut that sheet out real quick. My school tried stamping that out. When they realized that was infeasible, they instead started a market in the small gym during lunch. Charged a $5 a day for a table. One of my friends made a couple of grand from running a table for a year. A teacher and an administrator embezzled millions. I didn't even know all this happened until years after graduation. Some of my friends had a teacher in question. Millions? At a high school? Not that hard to believe. My school district employs about 860 teachers with an average salary of $78K. So that's about $67 million being paid towards just teachers alone. So if you take into account all the other funding the school receives, computers, janitors, administrators and sports teams, then for some top admins to be fudging some numbers over the years can very quickly add up to over $1 million if they are smart about it. The cool gang of kids, not me. I've never been anywhere near cool. Got into a dare contest which ended up with one of them having to get a pair of knickers from a particular girl. She didn't want to play the game. So he ended up cornering her in a boys' toilet and cutting them off her with a knife. We never saw him at the school again. All games were banned. A mentally handicapped student beat up a teacher while yelling, "Where's my cookie dart?" Playing and blocked games. A special ed kid got jumped by a dude on his way to school and was beaten bloody. The whole thing was recorded by the guy's girlfriend and her friend. The whole time they were cheering him on, yelling things like "World Star" and so on. She later posted it on Instagram, which pissed off everyone, and just about everyone wanted to beat the dude up in the vid. He was given temporary suspension, ducking BS, while the police took care of him. From what I know, he was given a assault charge. Also, side note, There was a girl at my school who was in minor league boxing who was ready to beat him up. She even tried looking for him by his house. Edit. For those of you arguing if the boxer would have won the fight. Can confirm. She was a hell of a lot bigger than the guy. In comparison. He was a pretty skinny dude. 1. A teacher got banned from the school district because he put all of the big-chested female students at the front of his classes and stared at them. 2. A teacher got suspended for telling a black kid to go heal himself. 3. A guy used to wander around the parking lot asking anyone who walked by coke. Want some coke? My senior year, one of my friends was murdered by her boyfriend and he drove around with her body in the trunk for a couple of hours. Also, a couple of kids got caught giving each other piercings in the stairwells. 2 kids had sex in the toilets a few years ago and other 2 kids burnt a desk inside the class. Little bit of backstory first. Our school had a big renovation ongoing. And because of that, almost half of the school was closed down. The closed part included the biggest bathrooms, and because of that, the school administration ordered 2 toilet barracks to be placed on the schoolyard. So, some 7 9th graders decided to buy some toilet pipe opener liquid, I don't know what is the correct term, and aluminium foil. They put the aluminium foil inside some plastic bottles and poured a little pipe opener in them with the foil. As someone has probably done this before, knows what is going to happen next. They stuck 6 bottles total inside the toilet bowls in every stall of one barrack and blew them up due to the chemical reaction between the foil and the opener. All the pipings of the single barrack were destroyed due to water pressure inside the pipes. Turns out that the 2 barracks had connected pipings and the water that was in the bowls in the other barrack shot up to the ceiling due to pressure. The students never got caught, and if I remember correctly, the incident ended up costing a hefty amount for the school administration. The barracks were taken away and were replaced with new ones. After the incident, every recess there was a teacher in front on the barracks monitoring everyone going in and out. Nothing happened to the new toilets. My ex brought a gun to school and threatened to shoot me and my new boyfriend. Edit. This happened in the Philippines about 8 years ago. Our high school wasn't on the K-12 system, so we had 4-year levels and around 80 students per year level. This was in our 3rd year, we were all the same year. And everybody involved kept going to that school. The rest of the students and faculty heard about it. And eventually it got to some parents. The mother of my new boyfriend did not appreciate the fact that her son was threatened with a gun. So she tried to take legal action. The mother of my ex-boyfriend did not appreciate this. And since my ex and I had a turbulent history which I've posted about here, she tried to take legal action as well. Nothing ever came of either of those attempts. Though, he didn't get suspended, he didn't get into any trouble for it at all and actually graduated with honors. I think. The professors didn't offer counseling to any of us, there were no heightened security measures. No seminars on safety. My parents initially didn't believe my account of it and didn't file a restraining order. The whole mess was basically swept under the rug. Allegedly there was a girl who would film herself being intimate with her dog and sell the videos pics. Spanish teacher got arrested for illegally bringing over a 14-year-old Argentinian girl and keeping her as a sex toy. But since she was here illegally and wouldn't testify against him, she was deported and he came back to school later in the year. Come to find out a couple of years later he had abused like half of the girls' volleyball team he was the coach of. Probably the pedophilic cult masked as a NAAA group that met in the basement somewhat regularly. This came up in a previous thread some time ago. I went to an incredibly shitty school in London that was in special measures by the time I left at 18 after a year with about 50% attendance and 3 grades at A level. It is apparently doing fairly well now since it has been amalgamated into the fold of a local superhead who runs several schools across the surrounding boroughs. But I will paste what I shared last time since people seemed to like it then. We had many. Dog hammer fight in my first week. Rush day. 1 day per year the kids in your 7 would just get random beats. A couple of stabbings year. Kid locked the woodwork teacher in the toilets. Woodwork teacher kicked the door off its hinges and set about the kid the very same way. Someone stole all the computers from the computer room. Kid was stripped and all his clothes and belongings were doused in lighter fluid and burned. Head teacher left for lunch one day and never came back. Our only person making the timetables was the admin business teacher. Died of a heart attack during a class. Starting the following year. No classes were organized for 2 months. Graduation year A2. To boot. Still received weekly notices about attendance during that period. History teacher got pregnant by another teacher. Conception apparently on site. They weren't in a relationship. Someone started a rumor that she was raped and he was also a pedophile. He had to leave the school. Superhead brought in to get us shipshape. Known for taking no shit and turning schools around. Made her quit her entire decades-long career. Couldn't hire new teachers. Woodworking debt was abandoned after previous incident. Kid trapped another kid in there with a mind to reenact some hostile shit and tried to slice his femoral artery with a sharpened file.